Today we are making a rosemary herb pork tenderloin with a fig preserve sauce. In this case, I'm using a whole lemon fig marmalade. You can use any fig preserves that you can find. And I am making this a really simplified recipe, but what I love about this is that it's only a few ingredients, but it's beautiful, it's tasty, it's really easy to put together. It'd even be great for hosting a small dinner party or entertaining. So I'm gonna walk you through all of the steps. I've got my garbage bowl handy, and the tools we're gonna use tonight, I've got 2 cutting boards because I don't wanna cross-contaminate between meat and vegetables. I have a chef's knife. I have a filleting knife to get rid of the silver skin on the pork tenderloin, a vegetable peeler for the carrots, a cast iron skillet, and my tongs. Now, I have a rapid prep mandolin that I love to cut the carrots. So I'm gonna do a little bit of the carrot with the chef's knife and then show you how quick and easy it can be with another tool if that's something you're interested in investing in. You really don't need fancy tools in the kitchen. You can use very basic supplies and still crank out an amazing meal. So it's really up to personal preference and how much time you wanna save. So these pork tenderloins typically come in a pack of 2. And so these are also a really economical choice because we have 2 full tenderloins here. And this was almost 3 pounds for $13.52. So 2 meals right here. And I'm only gonna cook 1 tonight and we'll save the other for another day. All right, so I always start with the pork loin and I always pat it dry with a paper towel and get all that solution off of it. And it just makes it easier to do a dry rub on it, which is what we're going to do. Now, I'm gonna give you a couple of different options, or at least ideas. You don't need to go out and buy fancy seasoning blends for your pork tenderloin dinner. You can use a combination of dried rosemary, garlic powder, some lemon pepper. I have an all-in-one rosemary herb seasoning. If you find something similar, you could use that as well. My favorite is a Pampered Chef rosemary herb blend. I use it on all the things all the time. It's one of my favorite spice blends. So I'm gonna start with I'm gonna trim some of the fat off here. And then I'm just gonna toss this in my garbage bowl. Now, I only use the garbage bowl just so I don't have to walk back and forth to the trash can. It makes cleanup easier and faster at the end when I'm done because I can just dump the whole bowl. All right, but this is known on a pork tenderloin as silver skin. And we really just wanna take that off. It's just a little tough, doesn't taste good, you don't need it, but you can just get a knife under that thin layer and continue to peel it back while you get that knife under there. You just want to get that started, and then you're going to peel your fingers away and keep that knife underneath that skin. Like so. A little extra of that fat there. Now, you may already be an experienced cook and you just wanted to learn a few different things or some quick recipes. So if that's the case, feel free to fast forward, or if you're newer to cooking, you've not cooked a pork tenderloin, just cook along with me and then pause as you need to. All right, we've got that ready to go. Oh, one more little piece right here. There we go. It's peeling off of there nicely. Now this is really the only trimming that has to be done with a pork tenderloin, and some come more trimmed than others. But that is all we have to do to that. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick, and then we're gonna season this thing up and set it aside and work on our carrots. I love cooking with pork tenderloin because pork tenderloin is truly a clean slate that goes with all kinds of different flavors. Rosemary herb happens to be one of my favorites, but really you can use any spice blend that you prefer on this. The cooking method is the same. So you can change out the spice blends, the seasonings, but the cooking method I'm showing you tonight works the same no matter what you're doing with it, and it comes out foolproof and tender every single time. So I'm just gonna take some salt, probably about a half teaspoon. Now I'm gonna season with one hand, and I'm gonna roll the pork tenderloin with the other so that I don't have to wash my hands 5 million times. Now I prefer to keep a salt and pepper well like this around. It was really cheap off of Amazon, but it's so much easier to dip into than trying to sprinkle. I feel like I can handle the coverage a little bit better. And then we're gonna do the same thing with some ground pepper, probably only about a 1/4 teaspoon. If you like more pepper, add more pepper. I don't like a lot of pepper, but I like a little bit of the seasoning to it. All right, and then we're gonna take our rosemary herb seasoning, and I'd say probably about a tablespoon of this. Now, again, you can use any rosemary blend or any Italian blend, really any spice mixture that you want to, but this one is absolutely delicious, the Pampered Chef rosemary herb. So I'm gonna use about a tablespoon of that, and we're just gonna sprinkle it. Add it in there, roll it, sprinkle some more, pat it in there. It really doesn't get any easier. And this will all be done just as quickly as a box of mac and cheese or a boxed hamburger helper or spaghetti and a jar of sauce would be. And that's why I love to show people there are different ways to do easy weeknight dinners without having to sacrifice on quality and flavor. And don't get me wrong, we still use those things in our house. They have a time and a place, but I also love to eat fresh whole foods whenever possible. Okay, this is ready to go. I'm gonna set it aside while we prep the carrots, and then we'll move over to the stove for the next prep. You wanna make sure you wash your hands again because you've been messing with meat and you don't want to cross-contaminate. Oh, I need a bowl for our carrots. Now you'll notice I'm doing all of my prep work before I start cooking, otherwise known as mise en place. Really important because it makes sure that everything's ready to cook at the same time and you're not running back and forth, letting something burn while you're trying to do something else. So I'm just gonna peel these carrots right into my garbage bowl. Now I don't know if you knew this, but your vegetable peeler goes both directions. You don't have to do this number. You can just go back and forth and save yourself a few seconds of time. And I am all about saving time at cooking dinner, especially during the week. Weekends are the nights that we play with things that take a little bit longer, and that's really when we usually do our fun kitchen experiments. But during the week, we both work. I work full time, and you need all the help you can get. Now, if you're cooking for a family of 8, you might want to cook both pork tenderloins and you might want a full pound of carrots. I'm cooking for 3. So I'm only attempting to cook for what we need because we're not great about leftovers. If you are and you want leftovers for lunch the next day, again, double the recipe, double the quantities. All right, we are done there. All right, I'm just gonna take these carrots. You know what, we're just gonna do a nice coarse chop on them. I'm gonna break out the mandolin at all. I don't think I need to for what we're doing. Now, because they shrink when you cook them, you wanna keep your chunks big, and they're gonna roast with the pork tenderloin. We've got an oven preheated to 400 degrees. And we're gonna cut these what they call on the bias, or kind of a diagonal cut, but we want them in fairly good sized chunks so that they still have some texture, they don't get soggy, but we don't want them super crunchy either. All right, I'm gonna say probably about 1/2-inch pieces, and you can just angle your knife ever so slightly, like so. Keep your fingers under, you don't wanna cut any fingers, and then hold your knife right here at the right at the edge. Is that called the hilt? Hilt of the knife. And then again, just angle your knife and rocking motion. And we're gonna toss these in the bowl. Again, angle it, keep your fingertips in, and rock. Now, some of these are quite a bit bigger on one end. In order to get them all roughly the same size, I'm gonna just go ahead and cut those in half. And that's just gonna make sure that everything cooks nice and evenly. Again, we'll take those couple, we'll cut those in half. All right. That is really all the cutting and prepping we need to do before we start cooking. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna drizzle these carrots with a couple teaspoons of olive oil. Now, if you wanted to mix things up, this would be a fun place to add a flavored olive oil, maybe like a garlic. You could do a rosemary. It'd be very good on the pork and the carrots. All right, I am going to salt and pepper these. A little pepper and a little bit of the rosemary herb. Let's say about a teaspoon. And then we're just gonna shake those up and let them get good and coated. Whoop, run away, carrot. And we're gonna move over to the stove and we're gonna start cooking. Okay. I have a cast iron skillet here and I have the stove at medium-high heat. I want this cast iron skillet to get really good and hot so that we can create a really nice sear on the outside of that pork tenderloin. Now we're simply going to sear it and then we're gonna finish it off in the oven. So you'll be able to go on about your business and do whatever else you need while dinner's cooking while the pork tenderloin finishes up. All right, so how you'll know it's hot enough is this oil will start to shimmer. And when it does, the pork tenderloin is ready to put in, and so will the carrots. So while that's heating up, I'm gonna walk you through the last step of what we're gonna do, and I'm just gonna take that fig marmalade. I'm gonna take this fig marmalade here And I'm just gonna warm it up in the microwave. And we don't need a lot. You just want to be able to drizzle it over the top. So I'm gonna take this, and I've just got a small prep bowl. I keep a collection of these around for all the prepping needs. Fig is so good on pork tenderloin, and it adds a nice sweet balance to that rosemary and garlic and the lemon that's in this, as well as in the rosemary herb seasoning blend. And I'm just gonna heat this in the microwave for about 20 seconds. I just want it to get loose so that it can drizzle over the top when we're done. And make sure you have your oven mitts close by, because cast iron, the edges get really hot. And I just want to swirl this oil around to make sure the bottom of the pan is coated. And just waiting for it to get that great shimmer. Now we can always test it. We can grab a carrot. And you want to hear what sounds like loud applause coming out of the skillet. I'm not quite hearing that yet, so it's close, but it's not quite ready. Per side. Oh, do you see the shimmer? Do you see it? I think it's ready. There we go. That's the sound you're looking for. All right, so I'm gonna put this in the middle of the skillet, and I'm gonna put the carrots around it, and we're gonna get them started as well. And everything cooks in one pot at the same time for easy cleanup and minimal mess, minimal dishes, and prep tools used. I mean, the theme of this class is weeknight meals simplified. So we really want to trying to keep few ingredients, but really flavorful, but a level up from what you normally would cook for dinner. It's been 2 minutes. We're going to flip this over aside, and we're going to toss these carrots around a little bit. You see that beautiful sear, that beautiful brown? Now, if you go to flip it and it sticks to the bottom of the pan, it's not ready. You need to give it a little bit more time. That could be either because you put it in before it was hot enough, or you just haven't given it quite enough time yet. So just make sure that it doesn't stick. It should flip over easily. And then you want to see that lovely crust that you see here that looks different compared to the rest. Now we're just going to stir these carrots. You can start to see some brown caramelization on that one side. And we'll do this for 2 minutes, and then we'll have about 2 more, and then we'll be ready to throw it in the oven. All right, and we're gonna flip it for our 3rd and final time. Oh, this looks so rustic and yummy. All right, that's our last 2 minutes, and then we're gonna put it in the oven for 12 to 15. All right, it is ready to go in the oven. So I'm gonna turn this burner off, and I'm gonna throw this in the oven and set a timer for 12 to 15 minutes. And then I have some water boiling over here for our grain or carb side. I'm making it simple, and I have a packaged pasta. I try to keep one of these around most of the time, but this one I got at Trader Joe's, a porcini mushroom and truffle ravioli that I think will be delicious. And I'm just gonna boil that while this cooks, and dinner will be ready. All right, it is done. So I've taken this out of the oven. You can see how much those carrots shrink up. I probably could have standed to cook a couple of more, but the 17-year-old doesn't really love cooked carrots, so I bet we'll be fine. Now we are going to check the temperature, and the pork needs to be at least 145, and it is 154, so it's good. Now I'm gonna let that rest for just a couple of minutes while my pasta finishes up, and I'm gonna drain that and just toss it with some olive oil and Parmesan. And I'm gonna put it on this cutting board to rest. Move this away from the heat. All right, here's our fig marmalade. See how we can kind of just scoop that over the top? But I'm gonna do that after we slice it and as we serve it, so that it gets down into each slice. You could pour it over the top and then slice it. I prefer to do it the other way. All right, put all these carrots around here. Now you could add other veggies to this if you wanted to do some red onion, some Brussels sprouts. You really could add whatever vegetables you wanted to around this. Again, this is another one of those meals where, or is a meal where really it just depends on what you have on hand, but the cooking technique and the recipe is the same regardless of what you're doing. So you can, this is really one of those recipes that's easy for you to play with. So there it is, all done. All right, I'm gonna add some butter and some Parmesan to this pasta. Maybe a little salt and pepper, and we're just gonna kind of let that melt together for a minute while we slice this beautiful pork tenderloin. Move that skillet out of the way. All right, are you ready? Now the pork tenderloin is going to be should be slightly pink in the middle, and that's okay. It is food safe, and it means it's tender. Now the ends that are smaller are likely to not be as pink, but as you get to the middle, look at that, it's perfect. See how nice and pink that is? This is the perfectly cooked pork tenderloin. I'm telling you, this process will never fail you. Season it however you'd like, sear it 2 minutes per side, finish it off in the oven at 400 degrees for 12 to 15 minutes. I think this one, because we just did the one instead of both, it was done in 10 minutes and then rested for 5, and it is perfect. Now, as I slice this, all those juices are running out and continuing to season those carrots. So now that we have it sliced, and I'm doing this because I want to show you how easy and how beautiful this simple recipe could be for entertaining and a dinner party or a special celebration. And we're just gonna spoon that right over the top. And if I had some fresh rosemary, it would be beautiful on top of here. But there you go. There is our easy weeknight meal.